Hey everyone, this is Siva from Pickleball RX. Sorry, recently I found something pretty interesting and honestly a little concerning in my RPM V2. Uh, After playing it for a short period of time, I've noticed some crackling. So I thought it was core crushed. I did an X-ray of my RPM V2 and did find out that there was a core crushing on this top part of the paddle. So I've reached out to RPM. I've done a video on this. I would attach it down below. You guys can watch it. And I've reached out to RPM and they did agree that it was core crushed and honored the warranty and sent me this brand new paddle. So this is a brand new paddle. So again, this is not to bash any brand. This is not to meant create any harm or drama or maligning. It's just a real world look at paddles and finding which one is core crushed. I decided to X-ray some of the Gen 3 paddles I've had and kind of to see which one is core crushed and which one is not. So before I go into the X-rays, let me explain what is core crushing. In simple terms, core crushing means the honeycomb core inside the paddle can sometimes collapse or crush. It may be perfectly fine outside. The only way to find out is to detect there is any change in the playability of the paddle or doing an X-ray to look at the core. But if you've been playing with the paddle for a long time, you would definitely notice the changes. It may play a little bit hotter. There may be some dead spots. The overall behavior of the paddle changes, so that would be the first clue to find out. The paddles which are at risk of core crushing are Gen 2 and Gen 3, more so on Gen 3. Let me go into the X-rays now one by one. So the first one is RPM V2. As you guys could see in the X-ray, it's core crushed. I did a detailed video on this before. But RPM was kind enough to acknowledge that it was core crushed and sent me a replacement paddle, and this is the replacement paddle. Just how well they dealt with this, we became fans of RPM, and mainly James. So Pickleball RX became RPM ambassadors. If you guys want to buy RPM paddles, you guys can use our code PBRX. It gives you 15% off. RPM V2 is their Gen 3 paddle, and RPM Q2 is their full foam paddle. They both are great paddles. The next paddle I did X-ray was JOOLA 4. So JOOLA 4, this paddle I bought it back in September of 2025. Used it for a good bit of 3 months. Was my main for some time, and I did not notice any change in the playability of this paddle. But when I did X-rays of this paddle, I could notice that there was some core crushing in this part of the paddle, as you guys could see on the X-ray. That was interesting. But again, like I said, I did not notice any change in the playability of this paddle. The next paddle I X-rayed was Ram Sports Typhoon. It's a Gen 3 paddle. We got this back in December of 2025, and it was a demo paddle sent by the company. We used it for about 2 months. I did not notice any change in the playability of the paddle, but if you look at the X-ray, there are multiple areas of core crushing. That's kind of interesting to see. The next paddle I X-rayed was Facolos Elite-X, and this is their Gen 3 paddle, currently used by Gabe Tadio, world's number 2 men's double player. We got this paddle back in December of 2025 as a demo. It was used quite a bit, was used by a lot of people for demo purposes. As you guys could look at the X-ray, it looks pretty damn good. The core is pretty intact with no signs of core crushing, so that's impressive. Even the grit looks pretty damn good, even after close to 5 months of usage. The next paddle I X-rayed is Facolos NEXX. This is their Gen 3 power paddle. This was actually used by one of our 4.5 plus player, Colby. He used it a good bit for almost 4+ months in most of his reg games, in his tournaments. So the paddle looks pretty good even after there was some decrease in the grit, which is kind of expected, especially with the T700 carbon surface. Other than that, the paddle looks pretty good. As you guys could see at the X-ray, the X-rays look good as well. There was no signs of any core crushing noted. And finally, the last paddle I X-rayed was 11624 Huarache Pro Power. This was one of our first companies who provide us with demo product. This was actually used by one of our 4.0 plus female player, Jenna. She used it a good bit since at least, I would say, August of 2025. She used it in most of her reg plays, in her tournaments. But if you look at the X-ray, it looks pretty good with no signs of core crushing. So that's this 11624. The only thing I noticed, if I have to pick on it, is the grit is kind of worn down. I would say 50%, which is expected, right? I mean, after close to 1 year of good usage. So here is a quick breakdown. After noticing the playability change in my RPM V2 and finding out my RPM V2 was core crushed, I've decided to X-ray some of the Gen 3 paddles I've had. I've been used for some time as well. JOOLA 4, I did not notice any change in playability, but the X-rays did show that there was some core crushing. RAM Sports Gen 3 Typhoon, not noticed any change in the playability, but then as you guys could see, there was multiple areas of core crushing. Facolos Elite X, Facolos NEXX, and 11624 Alpha Pro Power used the most, but then there was no signs of any core crushing. So why this matters is it's kind of important to identify core crushing, especially in Gen 3 paddles, because it affects the warranty. I would recommend buying any of your paddles, especially when you're spending $200, $300 from authorized retailers, distributors, or from the main company's website. And as soon as you get the paddle, please do register for warranty. As soon as you guys notice any change in the playability, any concerns for core crushing, please reach out to the company. They will honor the warranty. Most of these companies provide about 1 year of warranty, so I want you guys to register as soon as you can. One important disclaimer, guys, I would like to make at this point is this is not a lab study. This is not a huge sample size. These are paddles I just personally used, played, tested, and X-rayed on my own. So we cannot say this applies to every paddle of the same brand or different brands, or every model for that matter. But what I can say is this: in our real world testing, some Gen 3 paddles showed internal core crushing and some did not. And some of them, even though they were core crushed, I did not notice significant change in the playability. So final thoughts: finding core crushing is an important concern, mainly for Gen 2 and Gen 3 paddles. The intactness of the honeycomb core of the paddle is very important for playability and the paddle performance. So it's very important for you to keep an eye on your paddle playability. If anything changes, please do contact your company, especially once you have registered the warranty. It's very because most of the companies stand by their product and they honor the warranty. Now, if you don't register your product, then they will not be able to honor the warranty. So you have to probably buy a new product. Because of this problem, they've identified in Gen 3 paddles, they went into full foam. The full foam paddles probably are not going to core crush, but there is some adjustment phase needed, especially because you need to understand how it plays and then how the feel of the ball changes. So a lot of players still prefer Gen 3 just because of the plushness, softness, and the connectivity to the ball. For example, Ben Johns, he says he's not going to foam yet, because he likes the feel of the Gen 3, and that's why the JOOLA 5 is still Gen 3. So, but again, every Gen 3 paddles have their own unique advantages as compared to Gen 4 and vice versa. So it's kind of important to identify core crushing, especially in Gen 3 paddles. So that's it, guys. This is Ivan again from Pickleball RX. Please do let us know which paddle you want us to X-ray next. I actually want to do X-ray of JOOLA 5 next. There's a JOOLA 5 demo paddles we use at our local club. I want to X-ray and see if they're core crushed or not, because just by the feel of it, the way it sounds, I think it's core crushed. I can't confirm until I do an X-ray though. Again, that's it, guys. This is Ivan from Pickleball RX. Please let us know what you guys think about this video, and please do like, share, subscribe to our content if you do, guys, if you do like our videos. All right, have a great day. Thank you.